It bites agents in the you know what all the time
because I see it in litigation. There's so many lawsuits that we file or have to defend because of an ambiguity in the contract that the agent drafted. I had one where the agent said, don't worry about that. The seller didn't disclose it. They're 100% liable. And turns out that wasn't something the seller had to disclose. And that was bad legal advice. Forcing the communication to be different on the front end with the client is going to be a really good thing in all of this.
People are like, well, first time home buyers, it's going to be harder for them, to buy a home now and this and that. And, I find that super interesting as well, because I'm aware that there has definitely been a very hard push, concerted, intentional propaganda, if you even will, for a long time about owning a home and that it's an investment and that sort of thing. And really, when you do the math on it, it's not actually a good investment. It is a forced savings account, though. And, I say collectively, as a society, are notoriously not good at saving. We're good at consuming. So owning a home forces you to save money. And for most people, the vast majority of their net worth is tied up in the equity in their home. So I understand wanting people to do that. I think we've lowered the barrier so low to do it. Everybody should do it. You know what I mean? Where it borderlines on financial irresponsibility, because I'm sure you see at closings all the time, people don't even have $2,000 if something comes up and you're like, dude, you probably shouldn't buy a house. That's not. So I think if people have to save more, if people have to postpone purchasing, it's okay to kind of sacrifice to get something that you want over time. I don't think that that's bad. What is your perspective on that?
So I 100% agree with you on that. However, I do think, in this world, and especially in this country with the, materialism and consumerism, I don't think that that is going to change because of this. I think that people are going to still try to find a way to stretch themselves to get the biggest house they can afford and, with still have the nice car and the this and the that. That's just our culture. And I don't see that shifting much at all. Although from a financial perspective, it absolutely should shift. And I say that because, this is going to spur and create different, AI technology type companies. And I've seen lawyers that are like, I'm going to capitalize on this and I'm going to do a flat fee for the transaction, or I'm going to do a 1% for the transaction so that they can use me. There's going to be all of these other options that are going to start popping up that is going to allow people, I think, to still get into these homes. And at the end of the day, I still think it makes a lot of sense in most cases for the seller to offer compensation to a buyer's agent. I really do. There are so many ways to maintain the seller's kind of net bottom line while providing compensation to an agent so that they know both sides are well represented, that I think it still makes sense to, for sellers to do that.
Instead of defending, which I've seen a lot of stuff from agents, I work all these hours and don't you know who I am? And I got to deal with all these crazy people. And I'm like, I don't know why you think that's a good idea to be doing, saying that in media. But instead of defending, it should be educating on the economics and the advantages and disadvantages. So what I've been kind of coaching agents on is now that we've come to an agreement, let's say at a listing presentation, I'm listing your home. Now that we've come to agreement in terms of products and service, I'm going to be providing in the professional fee for me to do that, whatever that percentage is or whatever we agreed to. Now it's time to have a conversation about compensation to a buyer and a buyer's agent and the advantages and disadvantages of providing that compensation. So we'll go over the options that you have, and whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. Fair enough? And they're like, sure. So I'm curious, have you heard, some of this news with NAR and stuff? And they're like, well, yeah. And then you take their temperature. What have you heard? Instead of verbally vomiting, instead of here's how I'm pontificating, what have you heard? Well, I heard something do I have to offer compensation? It's well, yeah, I know it's a little bit confusing, right? Because you're getting all this stuff from the media, and I don't know about you, but it's very difficult for me in other topics to figure out what's actually true or not. And there's two rule changes that really actually affect you at all as a seller. So I'd like to review them with you so you're clear on them. Would that be okay? Well, yeah. Well, the first one is that we're no longer able to make an offer of compensation in the multiple listing service. We still can make an offer of compensation, just not there. The second is that if a buyer's agent is working with a buyer, they need to enter into an agreement and be clear on the compensation and how that works. Make sense? They're like, yeah. So the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. Can I explain to you what I mean? Well, yeah. Well, let's imagine, Kristen, there was you and your significant other, you guys are purchasing a property, and there are 10 properties that you want to look at within a 5-mile radius of your geographic area you want to be. And 7 of them are offering out compensation to your buyer's agent in the form of a concession or a percentage of an agreed upon purchase and sales price. And 3 of them are offering out nothing. As a buyer, which properties do you think you would instruct your agent to show you first? One's offering compensation to your agent or one's offering nothing? And then, and they'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, one's offering compensation. And then you tie it down by saying, why is that? Because if I can have it covered, like I won't have to pay for it. Exactly. So just by you saying that demonstrates that you recognize the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. So now we can review the different options that you have. And again, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Fair enough? Yeah. Well, the first option is we offer out nothing. Now, in doing so, as you just shared with me, we could end up affecting showings, which ultimately affects how much you can get. Now, you do want to net the most, don't you, Kristen? Yes. Okay. You also shared with me you guys want to, make this sale happen in the next 120 days, which means we need to be under contract in the next 60 because it takes like 45, 60 days to close. So what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 120 days from now and it wasn't sold? You look at your husband, that would be terrible, honey. We can't do that. Yep. So the other issue with offering out nothing is that it usually takes longer. So it really seems like based on what your goals are to net the most and do it in 60 days, that option wouldn't work for you, would it? Nope. Great. Second option is we can offer out a concession of some sort, right? Because we're still allowed to do that in the multiple listing service. And the idea behind that is that the concession can go towards the compensation of, the buyer's agent, or it can go towards the buyer's closing costs, which would free up capital for them to be able to pay their buyer's agent. And what we're seeing as we kind of deal with this real time, as it's working out in this price point, somewhere around $10,000, $12,000. The third option that we have at our disposal is what we've been doing for the last, 50 years, is that we offer out a percentage of the agreed upon purchase and sales price with an acceptable offer. And in doing so, we broaden the exposure the most, which increases the chances that we'll get the most in the quickest amount of time. So here's my question to you guys. Based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, based on the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, which one of those 2 options do you think would serve you and your family best? And then shut up. And the vast majority of them will be like, well, honey, we really got to sell. Like, let's do like a percentage. You're like, okay, great. What were you guys thinking? And then you come to an agreement and you're done.
Exactly. And I think that it's an interesting kind of question that's been posed in light of all of this NAR settlement talk is, should a listing agent be kind of pre-negotiating that compensation amount that's going to be offered to a buyer's agent? And I 100% agree with kind of the presentation you just gave. I think that would be extremely effective. But I think another kind of option that would be interesting is you're sitting down with your seller and you say, you're going to pay me whatever it is, 3%. That's my professional fee. I need to educate you that we may have an offer come where a buyer is going to ask us to pay for all or a portion of their agent's compensation. And we don't know what that buyer has agreed to pay their agent. They could have agreed to pay them 1%, 3%, 5%. We don't know. So to go to your seller and say, hey, I need you to agree to 6%. We're going to offer 3% to the buyer's agent and 3% is going to go to me. I would consider stating, you're going to pay me 3% and you should keep an open mind to any offers that come in that include compensation. We may have offers that come in and don't include any sort of contributing compensation, and then we can have it run the board. So if we're kind of pre-negotiating like, hey, I'm going to need the $10,000 to $12,000 or I'm going to need the 6%, that number could be completely irrelevant because we know that buyer's agents cannot get more than what they've pre-agreed to with their buyer. So if they've already agreed to 2%, that's all they can get. And I mean, that's good news to your seller if they were planning on more, but kind of leaving that open-ended and say like, even if your position right now, Mr. Seller, is I don't want to pay anything to the buyer's agent, my recommendation is that if I get any inquiries asking, what are you offering buyer's agents or are you offering any compensation? The response should be, my seller will consider all reasonable offers. Like, make the offer. As long as the numbers work out at the end of the day, how we get there should not matter on the seller side.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And what it makes me think about is like in the commercial world, that's how they've done it forever.
Exactly.
So the buyer's agent calls the listing agent, yo, you guys offering compensation? Whatever, including your offer, they make an LOI, including your compensation. People will pay for access. So if I help a seller self-discover how they need to position a property so it's competitively positioned in the market where we get multiple offers, the probability that they're going to have to pay like compensation, in my opinion, with a high degree of probability goes down dramatically. Because I've seen people, I'm sure you have, particularly, in various different seasons of the real estate space. I've been selling real estate since 2006. So I saw it then. I saw it in 2020, 2021, people paying 25, 50, 75, 100, removing over ask price, removing appraisal contingencies, removing inspection contingencies. I remember because I was telling my wife, I'm like, this is ridiculous and completely financially irresponsible. Like when I saw people paying that much over and removing like inspection contingencies, I was like, what are people doing? This is complete insanity.
Yeah, we've seen that too. I mean, sight unseen, $50,000 escrow deposits, like anything they could do to be that winning offer. And so the market's also going to dictate that, right? I think it should really be looked at on a case by case basis. Maybe it doesn't always make sense for a seller to offer compensation. In most cases, at least in our market right now, it probably does, but that's going to fluctuate with the market, with inflation, the overall economy, all of those sorts of factors.
I agree. So because I sold real estate in 2007, 8, and 9, like you mean to tell me when there were 20,000 homes for sale in Broward County. Like, you mean to tell me that somebody's not going to pay 9% to get their home sold? 100% they will. It's very much so market dictated. The other thing that it made me think about as we're kind of triangulating ideas is, as a listing agent, helping somebody to self-discover that by positioning a property competitively price-wise, it increases the probability not only that we'll get multiple offers and best terms and conditions, but that we won't have to, like, we can save money on the professional fee because we can dictate from a place of strength versus, you get one offer and that's not the same dynamic. So then you can ask a question, be like, well, is that the position that you want to be in? Well, yeah. Okay. So then we have a choice. We can either list it higher and see what happens and then increase the chances that we'll have to pay compensation or extra compensation, or we can position it more competitively in alignment with what buyers and sellers are agreeing or a little bit below, get multiple offers, and therefore be in a situation where we can negotiate from a position of strength, dictate terms and conditions, and perhaps save you some money on the professional fee.
Kind of going back to one of your earlier points, like that's why education is so important. It's less about kind of defending your value and your worth and your years in the business and, how hard you work and how you're going to answer the phone at midnight and all of those sorts of things. It's educating on, here's how this is going to impact your bottom line. Here's if your priority is time, like I need to get this sold by X date because I'm closing on a new construction house or I'm moving out of state or whatever it is, like all of those things should be considered on a case by case basis. And then you respond to it by educating and letting them make the decision exactly how you just laid it out.
I've told people that NAR never had an incentive for there to be less agents. Actually incentivized to have as many as possible.
Right.
Because they get dues, right? So, Charlie Munger said you have to be very careful how you incentivize people because it shapes behavior. So if your intention is to have as many people as possible, what you will do is make the barrier to entry as low as possible. I've always said for a long time, like it would have made sense. Like you can't call yourself an agent unless you do like 20 deals a year. Then you'd be like a junior agent. They have junior associate, like junior, you know what I mean? Like that's what it should be. But so I guess from your perspective, do you perceive that a lot of agents, because 60 to 80% of them are buyer side heavy, so they're going to have to do a formal presentation demonstrating value. They do not possess the sales skills that I just deployed. They're going to have to ask for money, which they've never had to do, like ever. Like sit down and be like, this is what it is. Like I'm asking you for money. Like, do you see a lot of that agent population just not being able to do that?
I do. So, and I see that for a couple of reasons. So number one, the reason you just stated, in kind of going back to that barrier to entry, like the real estate industry is unique in the sense that the barrier to entry is so low that you can have, stay-at-home moms that want to do this on evenings and weekends. You can have part-timers. You can have people doing it as a side hustle. You can, of course, have the people doing it as a full-time career. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But with the level of kind of preparation and education and value proposition that you're going to have to include in that presentation moving forward, I also think that buyer's agents are going to see a hit in the amount of compensation they get per deal. Because of those things combined, I think we are going to see a lot of agents drop out, and that's probably going to be the agents that are more the part-timers, side hustle type of agents.
Aaron started real estate in 2006. He is an amazing, amazing coach. I think it's called Elite Real Estate Coaching. If you haven't heard it, look it up, Google it. This guy's on fire. And what he does is he trains top agents in both Canada and the US. And the cool part about it is that he's gone through that, the market that happened in 2008. It was a total, I can't swear on here. It was a total storm. So he's so good with navigating through those difficult times and those difficult markets. Got great personal skills. He's great on stage. And I'm so honored to bring him up here. Aaron?
Yes, massive value. All right, let's do it.
I'm oftentimes asked on panels and podcasts if I have any regrets of my 17-year career selling real estate in high volume and coaching and training some of the top agents throughout the United States and internationally. And I've really thought about that recently. And I came up with two, and I'd like to share them with you if that's okay. So the year is 2011. I am on my 5th year of attempting to accomplish a pretty sizable goal, which is to have 100 closed transactions in a calendar year. And this is the year that I'm going to do it. It's October. I'm at 87 closed. All I got to do is just finish strong. So, I'm prospecting, doing my thing. It's the last week of October, and I decide to set an appointment on Halloween at 4:30. Because I say to myself, you know what? I'm a trained professional. I'll get in and out of there in 45 minutes and be done. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those experiences or seen one of these memes. It's like, at this moment, he realized he screwed up. Because as soon as I sat down with this guy, he was a talker's talker. He spoke for 35 minutes and didn't even take a breath. Anybody been on an appointment like that before? Yeah. Now, what he proceeded to share with me during his tirade of his whole life is that he was a retired negotiator for unions. Oh, yeah. This is someone who gets all of his self-worth, self-esteem, and identity from negotiating what he perceives to be a good deal. I'm already here. Roll up my sleeves. Let's go to work. Get through the formal listing presentation. We get to the part where we start talking about commissions. We go round and round in a circle for 50 minutes. Now, I'm, at this point, exasperated, a little bit pissed off, frustrated. So I get up and leave. Two things were true that day. First one is I didn't take that listing. The second one is I didn't get to participate in my son's first Halloween. Because you will notice in that picture, the people there, the one up top is my mom. The one right there is my lovely wife, Carla, who's sitting over there. That is Sebastian. He's also over there. He's going to be 14 now. But who's missing? Because I was on a listing appointment. I see a lot of heads shaking. You know what that's like, huh? Now, the second regret is actually more recent and had to deal with my transition to EXP. So prior to joining EXP, I actually owned part of a Keller Williams office. I actually sold it back in order to participate in this opportunity, lost about $80,000 during that transition. But while transitioning, I had a guide, I had a coach. His name is Lars. Some of you guys may know him, Real Estate B School. He's one of the top attractors in the company. And on our coaching calls, he would begin these calls in a way that I wasn't accustomed to and I didn't like. He would say, hey, I want you to bring me some personal wins and some professional wins. Now, as a hard-charging type A personality, professional wins were easy. Long list, right? Personal wins, that was a challenge. I was grasping at straws, okay? And finally, after ignoring him for like 2 months, The way he got my attention is he said, hey, bro, if you don't come back with a personal win, I'm not going to coach you anymore. He meant business. He got my attention. And, Tony Robbins says where focus goes, energy flows, right? So I started to focus on it. And lo and behold, guess what? I found a personal win. And I was so excited. I'm like, don't even ask me about the professional wins, okay? Just ask me about the personal win. He asks me, and what I tell him is, I went to my son's soccer game. To put that in perspective and to put that into context, the year previously, I had only gone to 1 to Sebastian's soccer games. Why? Because they were at 3:00 in the afternoon. If you are selling 150 homes a year, coaching 30 people one-on-one and 70 in groups, it's very difficult to stop what you're doing at 2:30 in the afternoon and come back and be in the office at like 5:30. So I shared this with Lars, and then I said very playfully, I was like, oh my God, do you know what his response was? He was like, what? He was shocked, Sebastian was, that I was at his game. And what Lars said to me, he looked right into my soul on Zoom and he said, Aaron, that is terrible that he's that surprised that you're there. Now, I don't know if you ever got the wind knocked out of you, but that's what that statement was to me. Okay. I'm not used to people talking to me that way. That's why coaching is a very powerful thing, because they point things out that you may not be paying attention to. And I realized that there had to be a better way. I didn't know what the way was, but I was either going to find the way or make the way. How many people have gotten yourself personally or professionally where something was no longer acceptable to you? Show of hands. Yeah. That is the proper state that you need to be in order to take action. So I did what I always do when I don't know what the answer is I get access to guides, people who do know what the answer is, and they've been down that path before. People like Lars, John Mikish, other guides that I got access to via books, which I'll share some of them with you today. And I'm excited to report that Sebastian's last soccer season, I only missed 1 of his soccer games. Yeah. What is also true is I haven't sold a single piece of real estate in 18 months. Wow. And between revenue share and investments, yeah, you can clap that up. He's like, oh, is that cool? Yeah, you definitely can. So, and between revenue share and investments, that supersedes my living expenses by a factor of 3. So I'm financially free and independent at 43 years old. Now, my intention in sharing that is definitely not to brag or boast. It's to demonstrate to you that I believe that everybody in this room with the right understanding of what this vehicle is, the right approach and the right strategies, you could do anything I've done in less time. Okay? I've spent the last 17 years of my career selling over 2,000 properties, 80% of that business being listings sold, starting a coaching company with 100 coaching clients, selling back my interest in KW, and in 25 months, attracting 340 agents to this organization. So what we're going to do for the time that I have allotted, right, the 16 minutes I have allotted, is I'm going to go over with you 4 things. The first is the very difficult decision that I needed to make to go all in on attraction. I'm going to give you the questions that I asked myself, and I'm going to give you the book that I read that helped me to understand leverage better. Second thing we're going to do is go over what we're doing to attract. It's not unique, by the way. Everything I've done in my career is not unique. Selling real estate in high volume is not unique. Attracting people in high volume is not unique. What is unique is execution. If you can come up with something new, people will clap. If you can execute, you'll be worshiped. It's the hard part. Okay? Third thing we'll do is I'll show you the progress. The proof is in the progress. The fourth, I'll go over why I believe the next 18 to 24 months is going to be an unbelievable opportunity in attraction. Who's up for this? Say aye. I'm sorry, I didn't fly all the way from Fort Lauderdale for that level of energy. Who's up for this? Say aye. Now we're operating properly. Okay. So the difficult decision that I needed to make is to go all in. And the reason why that's so difficult is because money has an addictive quality. And because of it, we get addicted to the way that we receive it. You see, I've been receiving commission checks on a regular basis, and it's like a little hit. Yeah, give me another one. Like Brent Gove has told us before, doing deals is fantastic. It's a wonderful mechanism for raising an enormous amount of cash. Based on everybody's education levels, we're making a lot of money for what we're doing, okay? At the same time, it'll pay your bills. Attraction will take care of you and your family for the rest of your life, okay? And a lazy mind's answer is just to work harder, guys. I created an identity of somebody who could grind it out. 3 hours a day, 6 days a week of prospecting for 17 years. Do you know what that leads to, guys? Incremental gains. You might do 25 more deals, 30 more deals. If you want 10x, if you want to make a quantum leap from one place to another, you need different vehicles, different strategies, different mental maps, and different vehicles. Okay? These are the decision makers, the filters that I use. Now, if you take a picture of this, this is the book that I read that helped me to understand leverage. I had a very rudimentary understanding of leverage until recently. It's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I know it sounds like somebody in a cave. He's not in a cave. He's a Silicon Valley guy. It's a fantastic book. You should check it out. As people that are entrepreneurial, you guys see money everywhere. I know I do. So you know what the hard part is? Deciding what's worth your time. Do you know how many agents I meet that want to sell real estate, start a property management company, own part of a title company, and people would rather own 4 businesses that make no money than one that does? It's just ego, right? So how do you decide what's worth your time? Let's say you have 10 opportunities to stack time on top of. What questions can you ask yourself to help you to decide? The first question that I began to ask myself is, does this compound? Do you guys know what I mean by compound? You guys understand compound interest, correct? Does this get bigger over time? You see, with selling real estate, inputs and outputs are associated. I take one listing, I get 1 commission check, maybe 2, tops. How many of you guys would like to have 1 turn into 10, turn into 20? You see, because I've brought 49 people to the organization, that's turned into 340. That's an 8x return on my time. The second question I ask myself is this highly leveraged? And here's what you need to ask yourself. Can this exist without you? And can it grow without you? How many of you guys have had, if you have a significant other, when you're on vacation, them give you static about bringing your laptop with you? Anybody besides me? Yeah, all the time. Why? Because it can't exist without me and it can't grow without me. Does that make sense? And the way that I know that that's true is we just did a leadership retreat in the Dominican Republic. The organization existed without me and it continued to grow without me. Once I use those filters, I'm only left with 2 opportunities. And with those 2 opportunities, I move to the next filter. Which one is in alignment with my natural skills and abilities? Which one will allow me to do meaningful work with people that I like and enjoy? And which one will allow me to have the biggest impact on the most people? When you go through that filter, you're left with 1. Do you guys want to know what the hard part is when you get down to the 1? Saying no to everything else. That's the hard part. So I iconed exactly once. Let go of 150 transactions a year, focused all of our time, all of our energy, all of our resources on this because of these filters. Does that make sense to you guys? As I mentioned to you, everything I'm doing is not unique, okay? People have used events to build like this. They've used marketing to build, and that's what we're doing. But in order to really understand what it is we're doing, we have to understand the definitions of things. So if we have an end product, what's our end product here at this company? What's the end product? The platform. The platform. Who's the end consumer? Agents. My job is to introduce the end product to the consumer. Does that make sense? The compensation plan that goes 7 levels deep, that's how I get compensated to do it because we're not salaried individuals. We are the marketing division for EXP. So if I want to go pro and be professional at this, it would require that I do events at scale and marketing at scale, which is media. So what are we doing? Events. We're doing a monthly lunch and learn event like we're doing right here. I do them every single month. I haven't missed a month since November of 2022. Okay. We're also doing quarterly socials. So here's an event. Look, just like this. Easy peasy. Get people in a room, add value, teach them something, have a conversation at the end. And yes, we will have a conversation. Quarterly socials. Once a quarter, we spend about a couple $1,000 to bring people together. Okay. That's an investment in your attraction business. We do big events. So last year, or this year actually, in January, we had 138 agents from around the country fly into South Florida. We did a seminar portion. Some of our leadership, that's Lars and John there, came in. That's my sponsor, Jose. We did a seminar portion. Then we did a black tie James Bond gala. Great for retention, great for culture. If you really want to like supercharge growth, it's easier to grow through others than it is through your own efforts. It took me entirely too long to figure that out. You need leadership and duplication. So what we did last month is we took 20 of our top people in the organization and we flew them out to the Dominican Republic and we did a leadership retreat with them, pouring into them, helping them. Wouldn't it be awesome on a residential resale side if you had 20 other people taking listings on your behalf? Would that be fantastic? Well, you can do that here. Okay. Now, the next thing we're doing is this media thing, okay? Now, we live in a time of permissionless leverage, guys. Let me ask you a question. 50 years ago, how talented did you have to be to get on TV? Exceptionally. Now, do you have to be talented to post something on YouTube? No, it is what? Free. But what do most of us use it for? Consumption and trying to get significance because we worry about if somebody's liking what I'm watching or what I'm doing. We're not using it as a tool that it actually is. So I'm curious, just by a show of hands, and I don't know what's going to happen here, how many people have interacted with a clone of me in the digital world without meeting me in the physical world? Show of hands, up, 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 if you've watched some of the content. Good, so maybe like 30% of the room. You know what's awesome about that? I'm as far away where I live as I could possibly get. I live in South Florida, clear across the continent. Okay, the only thing that makes that possible is media. And the thing to understand about media is you have to build this ecosystem of attention, short, medium, and long. Okay? Short form, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. You know what that's like? Sitting in a room of billions of people and doing this. Hey, 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 look at me.
So if you look up badass or badassery in the vocabulary, you'll probably find Aaron Novello's pictures right next to it. So I got to interview Aaron in the Team GoGo Agent Attraction call a few months back, and I didn't know who he was. Well, after the call, I got off of there and I was like, oh my gosh, I really like him. I love his mindset. I love his attitude. I think it's really important, our mindset, and it's really important what we believe of ourselves, because then we take action if we believe that we can. And I'm super excited for all of you to be able to listen in.
I've got the go-go seal of approval, apparently. Yeah, that's cool.
So it was like, I was like, you were like the badassery of real estate in action. And I wanted to interview you. I know you do all kinds of interviews, like, you know, all kinds of things, but I really wanted to get to know you of how did you get to this mindset and how did you get so solid in who you are, right? So can we go all the way back to like, let's start at childhood. Who is Aaron?
Yeah, so I think that we can only behave in accordance with the way that we see ourselves, which is super interesting, right? Because I have the good fortune of coaching agents across the country and, you know, in the organization that we're building. And no matter how much rah-rah, like how much motivation, we will always fall back with our self-image. And the issue is like, okay, well, where does that image come from? And usually it comes from experiences that we've had in the past. And what I think people don't realize is that it's also malleable, meaning
What does that mean?
It means that you can change it. And you know this because you spent a lot of time with like Tony Robbins, and he talks about like physiology, focus, and language. And those are the ways that we can shape our identity. And our identity is how we see ourselves, right? So, you know, there's a saying that says like, when you see it, you'll believe it. That's actually not what's accurate. It's when you believe it is when you'll see it. Yeah. So my experience as a younger person, which kind of shaped me at that point, was my parents got divorced. Biological parents got divorced when I was young. And I was sent on a plane like for 3 years, from the time I was 1 till 4, to go live somewhere for 2 months out of the year, 3 months out of the year. And really with a stranger, you know what I mean? Not somebody that I actually knew them. And if you can imagine kind of being a little 3 or 4-year-old, like our brains aren't fully developed at that time. So we make meaning. And the meaning that I deduced is like, oh, I must have done something wrong.
Aww.
Like, there must be something wrong that this person that I love so much is like sending me away. So then the meaning that I came up with is like, oh, that means I have to be like the best at everything. So
okay. I'm going to stop you right there because I know exactly why I like you. So I'm going to tell you my story, which is literally the same meaning, different story behind it. But I have my parents, they're still alive, healthy, and they're married. And I was raised with my sister the same way. My parents never told us they love us, like the words, right? Mm-hmm. And so I achieved, thinking if I achieve this, then they're going to tell me they're proud of me. Or if I get that award, then they're going to tell me they love me. So I know exactly where you're coming from and where that achiever began. Now I don't know how to do anything else. I no longer need that. I no longer do it because of the same reason, but it created a habit. And I don't necessarily want to break. It's my identity. It's who I am.
Yeah. And what I'm aware of is that the reason underneath changes. So initially it was fear. It's like, I'm afraid that if I don't perform at an optimal level, then I won't be accepted and therefore I won't be loved.
Oh,
the power,
you speak my language.
While externally people might look at you and be like, wow, like you're producing favorable outcomes. Internally, it wasn't like a fantastic experience. And it's really about raising levels of consciousness. So the first level of consciousness is like, why is this happening like to me? It's to me consciousness, which is really victim. Like, you know, this is not fair. Like, why am I having to go like, you know, on a explain, and like, why is this happening to me, right? The second level of consciousness is by me, which is meaning like I'm a co-creator of my experience. So I create with the creator, right? And the idea is like, instead of asking, how is this why is this happening to me? It's like, well, how's this happening for me? So everything becomes like a learning experience. And then the highest level of consciousness is actually through me, which is that there's something that's bigger than me. And you can call that whatever you want, Ray, Chi, the primordial vibration, the Holy Spirit, God, like whatever you want to call it, that wants to accomplish something through me.
Oh my gosh, like you and me literally talk the same language. You know the Zig Ziglar quote that I can have absolutely anything in life, the more people I can have to get what they want. I'm in the people business. I'm in the business of changing lives through me and through what I learned. And I do believe in God. So I do talk a lot about God. And I have a lot of spiritual leaders that live today and lived in the past, like Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's no longer here with us, but Tony Robbins, who is. And I try to take as many people as I can every single year to UPW, which is Unleash the Power Within. He is 60 some years old. So who knows how long he's going to be here. And it's so different to be able to go to an event like that in person than it is to read a book or watch something on TV or YouTube, right? So I'm assuming what happened, it started in your childhood, but when did you start realizing that, hold on a minute, I give meanings to things because of things that happened. It doesn't necessarily stand true anymore. When did you start realizing this soul search? Well, first of all, I say the same thing. I say that business is a spiritual game.
You know, my family of origin, they're nice people, but they, were ignorant. And ignorant doesn't mean stupid. It just means they didn't know something about financial freedom and independence. So I watched, they live paycheck to paycheck. They're kind. A couple times we were on food stamps. So I was just aware of the negative consequences of like poverty, essentially. And I made a decision where I was like, look, I don't know what the way is, but I'm going to either find the way or make the way. This will not be my experience for myself or anybody that I'm responsible for. So I started to read a lot of books. And the books that I had a tendency to read obsessively were about building wealth, and they all had a tendency to gravitate towards real estate. And I figured, well, what better way to learn about the vehicle of real estate than to help people to buy and sell it? And what was interesting, Gogo, is on those personality profile tests that I would take, I'd always try to find who made the most money. And it was like surgeons. I try to like will the test to be like, yeah, I'm supposed to be a surgeon. You know what it would always come back as? Salesperson. And I would be like, no. Like, yeah, right. So that led me to, I was in a talk at the University of Florida where I went to school, and there was a woman there who was talking about real estate. And the guy who was leading the talk was like the richest guy in Gainesville. He owned the biggest private gym in Gainesville. He had a helicopter, like a plane, all that stuff. And he was talking about a book called Think and Grow Rich. So those two things kind of coincided. I figured, well, like, all right, well, what better way for me to kind of, get into this, like this invisible hand that was pushing me in that direction. And that's how we started to kind of look at real estate sales as a mechanism for raising cash to build wealth. And it wasn't fantastic at first. Like I made $13,000 my first 10 months. Like it was not off to the races. Like
I made $16,000 in my first year.
And I think people imagine, particularly in an Instagram world, that like that's how it is. But anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly before you can learn to do it well. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that the barrier is so high, because if it was easy, everybody would do it and the pay would drop dramatically.
So then what happened? Was there like a pinnacle moment when you're like, okay, I need to figure out this mindset things? Was it kind of like a snowball effect? Like, where did it really start for you when you started working on Aaron?
Well, I had been, reading lots of books. I've been professionally coached since I'm 26. I'm 43 now. So I recognized, that I needed guides really to kind of condense the learning curve. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal growth and development. And what really caused me to start to pivot in the direction that I'm going now was not like a wonderful, warm and fuzzy epiphany. It's usually pain. Because pain is a much more stronger motivator than pleasure. We're way more motivated by pain than we are pleasure. I was selling like 150 homes a year, just me. Like I didn't have buyer's agents or anything. It's just staff. 80% of that business being listings sold. And I was also coaching 30 people, 28 to 30 people individually one-on-one, and like 50 people.
Oh my gosh.
So I was doing that for 2 years. And, while the money's great, what was happening is it was requiring like 60 to 70 hours a week of working. And I have younger. Yeah, I had no life, but I also, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old now. So I was making a trade. I was very conscious of the trade that I was making. At the same time, though, it started to reach a point where it was no longer acceptable to me to make that trade. And it wasn't necessary, because the other thing that I'd been doing, because I was so maniacally focused on wealth, is from the beginning, I was saving and investing 50% of everything I earned. And my wife, we were having conversations, and she's the operations person. And she would say to me, like, look, like, what are you doing? Like, how much money would it take for you to like chill out? But that was, you see,
Do
that's
you
like,
know how to chill?
yeah, I'm learning. So what I'm aware of is that's like running. I was running aggressively. So it's one thing to like run towards something. It's another thing to run away from it.
I did the same thing. When I joined EXP, I was very much in production. I burned the candle on every angle. So if my candle had 100 angles, I burned them on all angles. I did production, I did agent attraction, I built 2 boot camps, like all of that in the first 3 years being with the company. I also haven't sold real estate in the last probably 3 years. So 2.5 years, burned it all. And then the last 3 years, I haven't sold a single piece of real estate. I do it through my team, but not through my own time and effort anymore. But what I wanted to say, now that I was in Europe, it was the first time ever, because what happened is, right, I was a solo agent with a single assistant who was also my transaction coordinator initially when I switched to EXP. Then I started all of these different companies, build all of these boot camps, did the downline, all of those things, which now I had to learn how to leverage. I can't be doing everything anymore. So ended up with 17 assistants, but I put all of my effort into building these different companies and being involved in every single step in every single process, any new release, anything that we do, right? Now that I went to Europe for 14 days, I think I was gone. I think I talked to my team maybe twice, maybe. And so at first I was like, oh, they can kind of do this without me, which is super exciting. But at the same time, when you're so involved in something, it's also super scary that you're no longer needed.
Like being being a leader of leaders has different activities that are associated with it, different responsibilities than being a technician or a rainmaker. So to be a rainmaker, I got to prospect every day. I got to do lead follow-up. I got to go on appointments. I have to negotiate deals. I have to practice my skills on a regular basis. I have to be consistent. Like there's certain things that I have to do if I want to do it in a meaningful way. Well, being a leader has nothing to do with any of that stuff. I have to build people one-to-one and one-to-many. I have to be constantly learning so I could be adding value to other people. Like I have to constructively work through conflict because there will be conflict.
Oh yeah.
I have to be able to teach others and lead classes. So there's it's a completely different skill set. I have to understand media, truthfully, because the way I tell the team, I'm like, look, I really don't do the media for me. Like I'm aware that as I get bigger, I make opportunities for you guys. Because if I hop on a third party call and they've watched 100 hours of my content, it's done. Like there's no like hard selling happening.
Right. But I want to ask you some questions that I just kind of want to fire off some questions because I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but these are some important questions that I like to ask people who spend a lot of time in their head. So how about the first one? What is the biggest lesson you learned and was the longest that took you to learn it? Like maybe you have to learn it a couple of times. Like I like to say, God will throw you pebbles, and if you don't listen, he will throw a brick.
That ultimately what I'm really looking for is inside of me.
What is your most important habit that formed you who you are?
Yeah, I finish. So I think that like it's very easy to start things. And what I see is that people go through this like cycle. They start off with like uninformed optimism. So they might look at what you're doing and be like, oh, this is fantastic. She makes so much money. Like this is gonna be great. And then what they end up with is once they start doing it is informed pessimism. This is harder than I thought it was. And where they end up with is they end up in the valley of despair, where they start to doubt, I don't know if this is for me, that I do the right thing. Maybe I need to switch companies, maybe I need, right? And when they do that, they just find something else to get excited about again. And they never actually accomplish anything. So like the best planners who don't execute get nowhere. So what's harder is to actually finish things. Like it's to set a goal to sell 100 homes a year and be maniacally obsessed for 5 years until you hit it. That's harder.
How do you define success?
Now, in the past, if you would have asked me that, I would have said units, volume, and money. Now it's impact. So if I'm going to be greedy for anything, I want to be greedy for my name being in somebody's testimony.
Who inspires you?
Yeah,
could be living, could be.
I mean, I think a lot of people inspire me. I think people like Grant and what he's done, Grant Cardone, what he's done with media. I've watched him with that. I've learned a lot from him. People like Pace Morby. I know you know Pace. He is I was just at an event with him, and he leads from the back, and he's an awesome community builder, and he really is like super generous, like silly generous with time, energy, and money. So people like Lars, he inspires me. I don't know anybody who gives away as much money as him.
What strategies or techniques do you use to maintain a positive mindset?
What we focus on is what we feel, and what we feel is our emotional home. So if I'm focused on what's not working all the time, what I'm going to feel is like, I don't know, not worthy, not complete, unfinished, like that sort of thing. So, I make it an intentional and purposeful practice just to be like appreciative of things like my health, like a really good night's sleep, like the health of my family, recognizing the opportunities that are available to me, the time and space that I live in, where platforms like this, like me and you would never meet each other 200 years ago, probably not, where we have access to basically the library of information of humanity, and it's free. So just to like recognize, what works, and that I have the greatest gift that I'll ever receive, which is the gift of life. Like once that goes away, I promise you, like all your friends will disappear. You know what I mean? Like everybody will go about their business and do something else. And all of this would be happening right now. Somebody else would be on this call with GoGo. Like somebody else would be, coaching you, like doing all this stuff. I just wouldn't be here to experience it.
My daughter, who's 10, was starting like a gymnastics class, and she was up at night crying. I'm like, what's up? She's like, oh, well, it's new, and these new people, they're all gonna laugh at me. They're gonna think I'm stupid and dumb. I'm like, guess what? Adults do the same shit.
How many of you guys know social's important?
But you fucking chicken out and don't do it? Yeah, it's just insecurity. It's all it is. I shoot a BombBomb video. Hey, Susie, this is Aaron. I just want to shoot a quick video, put a face to the name. Say thank you kindly for taking the time to speak with me. I know your time is very valuable. So as promised, we're going to be sending you an email to this email address. And in that email, amongst other things, will be an updated market analysis that we'll be reviewing together as a team, so we can figure out strategically how to position the property to make sure we get top dollar. And I'll bring that with me. I'll also have with me the appropriate paperwork. So provided that it all makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, we can take the next steps. So in the meantime, if you need to reach me, here's my personal cell, blankety blank. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Bye-bye now. How many people send them that video? Nobody. Will that cause you to stand out? Yes. 100%. Because you're meeting them in a digital form. How many people have met me in the digital form before they met me in the physical form? 1, 2. Okay, here's what's interesting. She told me the story. Jeanette, told me the story. You realize I wouldn't be here if she didn't see me on TikTok? You know what she said? She was like, yeah, I needed a speaker. I'm like, who's gonna speak? And she started flipping through TikTok. She saw me speak. She's like, that guy curses. I curse. That's awesome. But you guys are afraid to let people like see you. And I know that there's somebody in this room who doesn't perhaps like me because I curse, and that's cool. That has more to do with them than it does me. But I'm fine with it, because they're not my peeps. You see what I'm saying? Authenticity is the best form of advertising. So I send a BombBomb video. Then I would send the information to do the CMA to my team, who would actually do the CMA, not me. 3 actives, 3 closed, 1 pending. That's it. All your guys' charts and graphs and fucking price per square foot. It's a waste of time. You spend 2 hours doing it, and you still don't get it right. It's a waste of time. So 3 actives, 3 closed, 1 pending. We send it to the client with a, so there's 2 PDFs. One is a pre-listing package, not you holding your dog. Yeah, don't do that shit. Don't be like the cat lady, bro. Like, don't do that. So, hey, can you imagine your doctor on their business card, like with their dog?
I don't do it, I swear.
Fair. If I see it, though. So, it has a pre-list package as a PDF, and the comps that we're going to go over. Because if they're going to freak the fuck out, I want them to do that before I see them. Make sense? I'd much rather do it then and call me back and be like, bro, these comps, than when I got in a car, I'm going to take a listing, I'm going to take a listing, I'm going to take a listing. You do your affirmations, you get all dressed up, and then you get there and they're like this. You're like, I saw those comps, bro. You're fucking crazy. I'd rather them do that before I see them. Does that make sense? And then we call to confirm, right? The other thing we do is in the signature of our email. So how many people, when you need something, technology has trained us this way. So like, let's say you don't know what product or service to use. Do you pick up the phone and call somebody first in 2023? Nope. What do? You go to the internet. You Google it. And what do you look at? Reviews, videos, social profiles. Then you make a decision on who gets your money, correct? Why are you not doing this for yourself? I see agents have 300 people. It's like, what are you doing? 2 reviews. I'm like, you're a rock star, but I can't tell. You look like every fucking Joe Schmo. Right? We have 300 reviews on our Google reviews. Make sense? So what I would say in pre-qual, this is part of, because it's all part of the sale. People think the listing presentation starts when I hit the door. No, no, no. It starts in pre-qual. It starts when I'm setting the appointment. But anyway, I would say, hey, in the email that I'm going to send you, in the signature of my email, there'll be a link to our website, which you can go and check out, put a face to the name. There'll also be a link to all of our personal reviews online. I have over 500 5-star reviews from clients just like you that we've helped from start to finish get the most in your area. So I encourage you to take a look at those in preparation for connecting, so that way you can get a feel and a flavor for the service and results we provide. Fair enough. Why am I saying that to them? That's how we've all been trained to make decisions about who gets your money. You realize, you're sitting with your significant other, you're like, where do you want to go to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go to eat? I don't know. Right? After an hour of that shit, you go online, you go to Yelp, reviews and pictures, that's who gets 150 bucks. Ta-da!
And it's one more click.
Right. So like, that's part of that process. So it consists of the email, but then also pushing them to digital assets. And if you don't have digital assets, you really don't exist. You're like, you don't stand out in any way. So let's say me and you were going on a listing appointment, and I'm like, again, it's not comparison, like just for like example purposes. You call them and you're like, yep, I'm gonna come see you. They look you up online. You have 2 Google reviews. I push them to 500 reviews. Who do they immediately think knows what they're doing more? Whether that's true or not. Because check this out. If you're on Amazon, right? If there's a product, let's say one product has 150 5-star reviews, another one has 10,000. Which one are you going to buy? Here's where it gets really interesting. Are you willing to pay an extra $5 for the one that has 10,000 reviews? Yes. That's perceived value. It's not even real. But that extra $5 could be like 20% more. Does that make sense? Good question. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, observations, hallucinations, emotional overloads?
Overpriced listings.
Don't take them.
Yes. Right.
What's coming, like the reason why that is because you're not pre-qualifying. 2 things cause us to take overpriced listings. One is kind of coming from a place of scarcity instead of abundance. 2 is we don't understand what the word motivation means. If you break down the word motivation, it's motive to take action. It's a reason for doing something. So you're not asking questions like, hey, your home's lovely. If you don't mind me asking, was there any particular reason you were even considering selling it? What would happen out on the outside chance if we were still here 6 months from now and it didn't sell? They're like, I wouldn't give a shit. Nope. Yeah. Not interested. Right? If you're like, yeah, and let's say they're adamant, you're in pre-qual. So like, you strike me to be someone who's super kind of, on point. I'm sure you've been going online and look at some of these sites that give estimates of value. I used to say Zillow, but fuck those guys. So instead, what I'm going to say is like, I'm sure you've been to some of these sites that give estimates of value. So I'm wondering, did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? Now, why do I say realistically? Everything after the word realistically has to be realistic. It's neurolinguistic programming. And they're like, well, I'm thinking like 1.7. And in your mind, you're like, God damn, like that's ridiculous. That's like 1.3 all day long. So then you ask them, you're like, well, let me ask you this. Let's say that we knew through no fault of your own or mine, which is a good way to deflect, through no fault of your own or mine, the marketplace was showing us, like somewhere around like 1.3, 1.4 was more realistic based on what buyers and sellers have been agreeing. If that was the case, what do you think you would do? And if they're like, I'll just keep it. I'm like, great. May I make a suggestion? You should just keep it. I appreciate your time. Make it a great day. And then you MTFO. Okay, do anybody know what MTFO is? Move the fuck on. Let's move on. Yeah, so what I would do is like, let's say you did in a moment of weakness. No, you knew better. Because here's the deal. You guys know when you do that shit. You know in your heart, there's like, this shit isn't going to sell. But you just want to go back to all your friends and be like, I got $1 million listing. But you know it's not going to sell. And I had a coach one time, he was like, hey, are you a collector? I said, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, do you collect listings? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what's the purpose of a listing? I'm like, to sell it. Oh, you see what I'm saying? That's the measure. So let's say in a moment of weakness you took that listing, I would have a come to Jesus talk with them. And I'd say like, hey, you know, what I'm aware of is we've been on the marketplace for like 30 days. And I wanted to give you a quick update just to let you know where we're at. And I also wanted to provide you with a few options that we have at our disposal. So that way you can decide what you feel is best. And whatever you decide, I'll support you. Fair enough?
Amen.
Yeah, so it's been, 30 days. And in that time frame, we've had one showing. Were you aware of that? Like, yeah, well, can you put it in the Wall Street Journal? That kind of shit. And you're like, well, I appreciate where you're coming from and asking that. And, it sounds like you just want to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to get the home sold. And what I can share with you, I know you don't follow me around every day. We're doing the exact same things that have helped us to sell X amount of dollars worth of real estate this year or sell X amount of units this year, if that's impressive. So I know that works. That's really not it. When a home's not selling, there's a few reasons why, and I'd like to share them with you. Would that be okay? Yeah. So the first is the condition of the property. Now you tell me, do you feel like your home is not in good condition? And what are they all going to say? Even if it's a piece of shit. Beautiful. Oh, it's fantastic. Right? I got that 2010 kitchen. It's dope. So of course they're going to be like, it's fantastic. Whatever they say, you're like, yeah, I agree with you. It's not the condition. Right? Now, the second issue is perhaps maybe I'm not doing my job. Maybe I'm just dropping the ball. Now, why am I saying that to them? Because they are. So I'm just going to be like, take off all the clothes. Let's do it. Right? Maybe I'm not doing my job. Maybe I'm dropping the ball. Now, again, I know you don't follow me around every day, but we're doing the exact same things that we've done. So I know that that's not it. And the third reason is the price. Now, when we originally connected, you were kind enough to share with me that the main reason you want to sell was blank, blank, blank. So with that being the case, and with the amount of showings that we've had, I did an updated market analysis, and I'd like to review it with you. And again, I want you to be clear. Sometimes when I review this information with people, they misinterpret it as though I'm not on their team. But you see, I respect you enough, and I appreciate the opportunity to be of assistance, that I'm going to tell you the truth, even if sometimes you don't like it. So the last closed sale, I don't know if you did you see that one off 1265 Plum? Like, yeah, I saw it, but like their kitchen's not as nice as mine, and blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that. They sold for 1.3. Did you know that? Now let me ask you this. If you were a buyer, not a seller, because I know those hats are different. If you were going to buy this place all over again, and you knew that one sold for 1.3, honestly, where do you think you feel comfortable making an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value? Now, who's telling them? They're telling me. Now, when they're confronted with like that, polite confrontation, one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to say something reasonable, probably 1.3, or they won't admit it. They'll be like, well, I see what you're saying. Right? They won't admit it. They're either going to do that, or they're going to get unreasonable. I don't care what the fucking comps are. Now you know you're dealing with somebody who's not connected with reality. Right? So if they're like, well, yeah, I get, or they're going to hem and haw. They're going to try to change the subject. They're going to talk about something else. And what they're doing right in front of you is going in denial. In the Bible, it says we would prefer to be lied to than to be told the truth. That is true. The truth will set you free, but at first it will piss you off. Right? So if they say like either one of the, let's say they say like, well, yeah, but like mine's nicer. It's like, yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I'm wondering though, if you were a buyer, honestly, do you think you would offer $400,000 more than the last closed sale? So we're in agreement that the marketplace is showing us around 1.3 seems to be reasonable. Do you see what just happened there? Who showed us?
The market.
The market, not me, because you guys own the price. And then they're like, but you told me, you promised we can do it. And then you back yourself into a corner when you go to ask them for a reduction. So they're like, well, yeah, we're in agreement. The marketplace is showing us like 1.3. So we have a couple options. Whatever you decide is fine. One option is we keep the price the same, and more likely than not, we're going to get the same result. That's not me being negative. It's just an accurate assessment. Very few showings, no offers. The second option, and it's a drastic option, but I want to make sure we talk about it, is we take it off the market. Okay? It's fine. We'll revisit it another time. The third option is we lower the price. And in doing so, we'll dramatically increase the probability we can get you an offer that's acceptable based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, based on the time frame you'd like to make this happen in. What do you think we should do? Let them decide. But be totally okay with them taking it off. Yeah, I'm not going to drive to you to go do this. Does your doctor come and drive to you? No. I'm going to do it over the phone. It's way more efficient. Yeah, last one. We'll be here all day. Let's go.
Do you wait for your place to price?
3 weeks. 3 weeks is more than enough time. 30 days is too long. Too long. 3 weeks. I start prepping them at 2 weeks, and then I ask at 3. All right, guys, well, listen, this has been an enjoyable use of my non-refundable precious breaths. I hope it has been for you as well. You can find me at Aaron Novello on all channels, Instagram, TikTok. If I could be of service or helpful to you guys, just let me know. Appreciate you.
A huge round of applause to Aaron Novello.
Grown-ups, in between, churning babies.
I'm aware that in order to have a good relationship with others, you have to have a good relationship with yourself first. So there's some key components to this. One is an imaginary continuum. You are feeling anxious, like hurried, rushed, hands up to protect yourself from an attack, breathing shallow and quickly, like, are you